Well, it's nice to, well, sort of meet you, Linus.
Yeah, sort of, virtually,
Yeah.
yeah.
I literally just finished A Call to Spy just now. It's a brilliant story. I mean, I'm still amazed at the wealth of stories still to be told from that era that I still am sort
Yeah.
of learning all the time. And just to follow on from that point, I mean, that must be one of the great joys as an actor, constantly reading scripts and constantly taking on new roles, is you're kind of constantly learning about so many different parts of history and amazing true stories and inspiring people over the last however many years.
Yeah, it's very true. It's very true. And I mean, it's interesting in this particular instance, you know, that we're getting to tell the story of these female heroines, you know, and there's always been the stories of the guys and what they've achieved. And so it is, you're right. You get this sort of vicarious insight into history, but you are dramatizing it. So you're taking a lot of liberties and sort of, you know, making stuff up as you go. But I enjoy the research. I enjoy learning about periods and also sort of capturing, if you like, what the consciousness was of the time and how people behaved and how different it was. And I mean, for example, with this one, that generation, I think they related to that particular situation very differently from how we might today. You know, there was an immediate self-sacrifice, willingness to do the right thing for the right reasons and put their own needs down and go to war. And I wonder how many of us would do that now. You know,
I mean, and also because I mean it is recent enough history that there's people that still they have ancestors. They still have people that knew the characters that are being depicted in this tale. So I was wondering, in regards to your research, if you met anyone or spoke to anyone who knew the man that you were portraying.
I did as much as I could to get hold of any reference to Buckmaster. I couldn't find any living relatives to talk to. I did find a very obscure documentary in which he's in, but the only way I could watch it was to stream it, and I couldn't download it. So I literally saw his little bit for all of a couple of seconds. I read quite a bit of he wrote 2 books, which gave, you know, I don't know if that really told me that much about the man, because there was such a sort of selfless sort of like, oh well, you know, this is what we did and we went off and all went very well, and he's talking about these life and death situation in this kind of boy's own annual way. So in the end, as you do as an actor, at a certain point you go, well, I've done whatever research I can. I did grow up in an era where I knew a lot of the older generation that had lived through the war, and there was a certain just demeanor, if you like, or a way they carried their experience without boasting or talking about it. There was a weight there. And I just wanted to just sink into what was it like? What could it have been like to not know what you're doing, make it up as you go along, and have all these people's lives in your hands you're responsible for. And that to me was the basis of the drama that I had to play within the movie. And I couldn't have done that without the brilliant Stana Katic, who plays Vera Atkins in the film, because nearly all of our scenes are just the 2 of us. And we shot all that in basically a week. And so we built a great rapport in that time. So did the research, learned what I could, but in the end, you just got to live in it, embody it, and be in the moment with it, and try, if you can, feel what might that be like to have that kind of responsibility, because I can't even bear it to think about it.
Do you think actors can almost make quite good psychologists in that regard, because you're constantly kind of trying to understand how people tick?
Yeah, I mean, it can, but it can also make you a little bit uncentered, you know, because you're sort of like, oh, I can be like this or I can be like that. But yeah, I mean, it's part of your job is to understand human nature. And also it can be quite liberating to find, you know, what is it that you have access to that you can kind of release, you know? I mean, I'm be talking about a different movie, but there's another movie I did a couple of years ago. It was like a revenge horror thing. And I found it was kind of like a catharsis to get that character, you know, it allowed me to sort of free therapy, if you like. But yeah, each role is like trying to understand motive and intention. And we're all a bunch of characters anyway, aren't we? We've all got a lot going on inside of us. So sometimes as an actor, you're just trying to mine out what's the energy I need and sort of build it. You know, I like to layer what I do over time. That's why I don't like auditioning. I'm crap at auditions. It's really not good for me because you have to make these very quick decisions and you don't have a lot of back history or story and you're suddenly just there committing to it. And I find that tough. So I'm more of a sort of read, learn, digest, absorb, live with it a bit, get a little drunk with it a bit, and start playing, you know.
How have you been doing much auditioning in like virtually over the course of lockdown?
No, I've had 2 since lockdown. Yeah, or maybe I just did one yesterday actually. So yeah, very, very. I mean, I gather things are starting up again around the world. It sounds like it, but no, it's been deathly quiet.
And you mentioned obviously just before, just this is a very empowering story of incredibly courageous women. And if you think about war stories, it's usually people in the kind of war room, so the kind of politicians who are men, or the people on the front line in the battlefield who are men. But how important is it that these stories of the courageous women and the women's point of view and perspective from the wartime is also being depicted on screen?
Oh, it's so important. I mean, you know, look, it's kind of a tragedy that it hasn't happened earlier, but I suppose we just got to run with it's good that these stories can and will be told more and more now. And it probably took this long for it to be focused on what the female effort was in this way. And so I'm very proud of Sarah, who's, you know, a woman who wrote this script on her own. She did the research. She went out, she produced it. I mean, that's a war. That's a battle in itself to get a film made. She made it happen. It's directed by a woman and it stars 3 incredible actresses in it. And so, I mean, it's time, isn't it? It's time. But like you say, it's extraordinary to just go and when you see the film, see what they actually did and how vulnerable they were and how much courage that took. And they only had 4 weeks training. I mean, it's like, what? Are you kidding? Yeah. So, yeah, I'm very proud to be in a story that's, you know, promoting what the female agenda, and there's going to be a lot more of that.
And also, as you mentioned, vitally, it's not just about this isn't just a women's story, but it's being told by a woman with a female director at the helm. So I remember when I was wondering really just about how important it is as well. And do you think it's almost a duty for male actors to seek out female storytellers and collaborate with women directors? Because that's another big thing that we need to try and help push along.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big believer in, you know, you really have to connect artistically, creatively with what's the right thing for each project, you know. And I don't subscribe to, well, it has to be a woman because we have to have a woman just because politically it's right. It's like, well, who's the right person for the project? But it's just true that women have had short shrift in the industry, and now there is hopefully more space for more women to come through. And interestingly enough, for me, like my first big break in a movie called Priest back in the 90s was Antonia Bird. That was a woman. And so I built a lot of my early work was done with women, and I've loved the sensibility of working with a woman on set. There is a different energy. There is a different sort of focus, and I like it. So I'm all for it. But I've worked with a lot of great men as well. So horses for courses, but let's please make more room for the women now. But I'm just glad that there's a bit of a watershed moment beginning, and I just hope it continues.
But I'm talking of sort of taking sort of inspiration from others. I mean, obviously, you know, you're very well. Your father is obviously a very prolific actor and very famous in the UK. I just wonder. I'm sure across the course of your life, you've often gone to him and sought advice in terms of acting. But I was reading earlier about that he was in the service. I was wondering if you've ever sought to get advice from him on that front, because obviously you've played roles of characters that are also entwined in that world too. Just wondered if you've spoken to him about that to help you craft a character.
Yeah, well, I mean, not specifically, but we've talked a lot about acting as a craft and an art. And you know, I was in the street as a kid, but then I was in it again some years back, and it was great to work together and, you know, and explore. We're always talking about, you know, how to do it. How do you do it? You know, because sometimes it feels easy and sometimes it feels almost impossible. And he's, well, you know, his great talent is that he goes to work every single day and it's like it's his first day. He's still trying to give his best game, and he still has that attitude, and it keeps him young. In terms of his military service, he's very funny about it because he always talks about it as if he just got a lucky draw, you know, like when everybody was heading off to Korea after he did his national service and he decided to stay on, he got posted to Jamaica. And he was in this little regiment, and he was in charge. He was the officer in charge of a bunch of guys, and he just drank Tim Collins and Tom Collins cocktails, and he did a firework display for the Queen. So he got a lot of good gigs, you know, so he never talked about it in any heroic way. But I do remember it had an influence on me growing up that he'd been in the army, because it made me think, oh, that's what I should do that too. So, but no, I don't think I've talked. I've talked to him about his exploits and found them interesting, but I've never specifically used them for a role.
Yeah. Obviously, I'm talking of your roles. I mean, you've got such an eclectic range of kind of characters and projects I've always found. I just wondered about, is that a conscious move for you? Do you like to try and push yourself and try your hand in different genres and different roles, or do you just follow the best scripts and the best characters and just see where the wind blows?
Well, it's a bit of both, but I suppose, in a way, things don't happen by accident, do they? Because I did always feel from the beginning that I was drawn towards versatility, and I didn't ever want to be typecast. I remember early on, I nearly ended up in a couple of TV shows, and I was like, no, I don't want to get stuck. I just don't want to get stuck. And now, I mean, maybe I've made the rope that's hung me in one way, and that people don't realize that the guy that did one thing can do the other. You know, like the guy in Homeland and Law and Order can also do Vikings and Mandy. And so, but I love that. I'm happy now, and I've lived long enough and worked long enough to say, well, actually, I can look back and go, well, I have got quite an eclectic mix, and that I like it. So, and I love the fact I can play Americans and British and Irish and whatever I need to. And so that for me has been the job of an actor, and I do seek it. But I have to be humble and say sometimes there's not a lot of choice. It's like, what's the next best thing? Oh, it's that. I'll take it. You know, so it's a bit of both. Yeah. Like Mandy, the movie Mandy with Nick Cage, that just came out of nowhere. But actually, it didn't come out of nowhere because he'd seen Chronicles of Riddick, the director, and he'd seen me play a weird alien, and he had some idea that maybe I could play this role. So nothing's by accident, but, you know, I wasn't looking for a really weird psychopathic cult leader to play, you know.
Well, if you were, you found one. Yeah, but I was wondering too, because obviously looking across your career, Batman Begins is another big project that kind of stands out, and obviously Tenet coming out recently means Chris Nolan's kind of back in the news. What were your recollections from your time working with him? And because obviously what we see as audience members are these kind of incredibly intellectual, almost methodical kind of films that feel like they've been meticulously crafted. Is he like that on set? I imagine him to be like a kind of scientist or something on a movie set.
He's very calm, he's very still, and he's extremely focused. And what's wonderful about that is often, you know, as an actor going onto a film set, one of the hardest things you have to deal with is all of the machinery and all of the pressure of the money and the thing and the, you know, the time. And he has this ability of just going, you're just here for this moment, you know, and there's nothing to distract you. He's just right there because we're going to get this moment right. And it's meticulous, but it's thoughtful, and it allows you to relax because you know you're in good hands. And I'm sure you are too. I can hear it. I am such a huge fan of his work. I mean, I think I've seen Inception upward of 6-7 times. Yeah. I can't wait to see Tenet. I love Dunkirk. I didn't get it first time I saw it. I had to go and see it in IMAX, like he said we should, to get it. But as you say, the way he crafts, the way he works, it's so masterful. I'd do anything to do another movie with him. Yeah.
Yeah, Tenet is brilliant. I think he's very clever as well because he makes films that you almost have to see again. So it's great for box office.
It is clever. I mean, literally, you know, Inception, you can keep going and going and going back and it still sort of surprises you and amazes you how intricate he built that structure, you know.
And what would you make of Robert Pattinson as the Batman? It seems like a bit of a new direction for that franchise to cast him.
I don't know, because, you know, he's already proving himself to be very versatile, isn't he? I mean, I mean, I think in the beginning I just thought he was the kid from Twilight, you know, and then you realise the kid from Twilight is a really great actor, and he's turning in some really interesting and different roles, you know. So I think it's good that we keep shaking things up. And you know, I think when Christian Bale was first cast, it was like, really, you know, Batman, Christian Bale, you know. But then look at what he did with it, and look at where he's taken it. So it's wonderful, isn't it, when actors sort of carry the baton on. I mean, look what Joaquin Phoenix did with Joker. I mean, that was an evolution of the whole thing in terms of taking that character into another dimension. So hopefully, I suppose, as we develop, we start going back to stories and actors start reinterpreting, and we all kind of learn more about how it can be done.
So my final question, because I'm just about to finish up with time, is just what's next? Have you got any kind of project? You mentioned obviously you've done a couple of auditions, but was there any projects that you had penciled in that have had to be pushed back, or anything you've got that might start shooting soon?
No, I mean, the thing is, we're all in the same boat, aren't we? With lockdown and COVID, it's kind of just thrown everything upside down. And I'm attached to 2 independent films, which I suppose when things get better and they find their funding, then they'll be fun to do. I'm just started to audition again for a couple of things. I don't have anything else coming out apart from Call to Spy. I have a small indie film shot a year or so ago called Being Dead that might come up. Apart from that, I'm kind of, in like everybody else, trying to make the most of this moment. And I've started writing, and my wife and I have written a project that it's a passion project that we'd like to direct it ourselves. And we're happy with what we've done with the script. And so we're trying to get that out now to people. And then I'm writing another one, my own one, a sort of genre piece. So writing's become something that I can creatively immerse myself in. But I would love to get back on a set. So let me know if there's any gigs.
Yeah, well, best of luck with the writing. That's exciting. I think so many people sort of at the beginning of lockdown said, right, I'm going to do this and do that, and didn't follow it through. But it sounds like you're actually following.
I mean, writing's just one of the hardest things. I've always had enormous respect for writers because, I think it just takes a lot of guts. And in a way, it takes more courage than acting because, acting, you're given everything to do, and writing, whatever's on the page, that came out of your head. It's your fault. It's you're responsible for it, and it's kind of quite daunting. But when creatively, when it's happening, it's great. But I've had to learn a lot. I've actually got a mentor that I'm working with to help me craft stuff. So I'm not just working in isolation. But yeah, I mean, I hope everyone else is using the time as well. And getting the things done that you never did before. And I just hope we get out of this sooner rather than later, because it's kind of like enough already. It's been intense, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. Well, I said I was going to learn French, and I still haven't. I'm just about at Bonjour, Je m'appelle, so I'm still.
You're learning French.
Yeah, but yeah, no, I was saying I'm rubbish. I've downloaded an app and I've learned. It says like 12. I'm fluent. I'm 12% fluent, but that's pushing it. But anyway, thank you so much, Linus. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Stefan.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys.
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey You Guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yes.
Nice.
Hey